class in managerial economics. So today we will continue with our next discussion. So this is part of the contents of module number 3. So last meeting we have discussed the contents of number 1 and 2. Specifically, we have discussed the relevance of managerial economics to the managers, and then the definition of economics, the introduction, and some specific topics, important topics in economics. So today we will continue with the specific topics of module number 3. So this will be the first part of the third module kasi medyo mahaba yung ating discussion sa ating third module sa managerial economics. So for today, we will be discussing about the concept of demand, the changes in quantity demanded, the changes in demand, and the elasticity of demand. So I want you to watch this video from the start to finish to record your attendance in MS Teams. So the only way to record that attendance is to play that video from the start until the finish. So there will be no attendance form that you will receive today. So all you have to do is to watch the video from the start to finish. And then next meeting, you will have your assessments number 1, 2, and 3. So just wait for further announcement about the assessments. But next meeting, hopefully by Monday to Wednesday, kung saan tayo mag-meet that day, doon yung assessment ninyo. So once again, this recorded video, so this will be available to you until Saturday this week, and then of course, aside from that, the assessment will be available to you for the whole day. Okay, so that will be our mechanism, our class in managerial. So to start, let's start discussing the topic number 1, the concept of demand. So I guess that you're familiar with the concept of demand. So when we say demand, it is the willingness of the consumer to buy a product at certain price level in different situation. So that is our definition of the concept of demand. So with that definition, we have the law of demand. So this law is universally accepted. That's why it is called as law. So when we say law of demand, it states that the quantity demanded decreases as the price increases, and in assumption that all other things are held constant, or the condition of ceteris paribus. So it means in the law of demand, as the price level increases of a certain product, the quantity demanded for that decreases. So we have that inverse relationship between our two variables, again, the price and the quantity demanded. So later on, we will differentiate the concept of demand and quantity demanded. So there's a difference between these two. So hindi dapat tayo malito sa dalawang ito. But in the law of demand, we are talking only about the quantity demanded and how the prices affect this quantity demanded. Okay, so we have 3 evidences of the law of demand, or the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So the first one is the demand function, the demand schedule, and lastly, the demand curve. So these are the 3 evidences of the law of demand that will show us the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay, so first, the demand function. So when we say demand function, it is the mathematical equation, so sort of the formula of the law of demand. So it shows the inverse relationship between our variables price and quantity demanded. So this is the basic form of the formula, or the equation of the law of demand. So it is QD is equal to A minus BP. So where QD is quantity demanded, A is the QD when the price is 0. So as you can see, our A is positive. So it is positive because in the price of 0, mataas ang ating demand. So positive siya. Okay, that is the quantity demanded when the price is 0. So of course, expectedly positive yan kasi mas maraming magde-demand sa product kung ang price niya nga ay 0. Okay? And B is the slope. As you can see, our sign for slope is negative. And this negative slope shows us the it signifies the negative relationship or the inverse relationship between our variables price and quantity demanded. Ibig sabihin, habang bumababa ang price, tumataas ang QD. So, meron silang inverse relationship. So, in this evidence, and lastly, the price, P is the price. So, in this evidence, the thing that shows us the inverse relationship between our variables is this B, or the slope. Okay, so that is the first evidence of the law of demand, or the inverse relationship between our variables price and quantity demanded. Secondly, the demand schedule. When we say demand schedule, it is the tabular representation of the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So it is a table that showing the price, the changes in price, and the changes in quantity demanded. And again, there will be an inverse relationship between these variables. So this is an example of the demand schedule. So let's assume that this is our demand function. So our demand function is QD is equal to 150 minus 4P. Okay? So all you have to do is to transpose these values of price to this P so that we can get the quantity demanded. Okay, so for example, for the price of 10, what will be the QD? So here in the tabular representation, we have the QD of 110. So let's try it to use it in this formula. So QD is equal to 150 minus 4 times price, which is 10. So 4 times 10 is 40, and 150 minus 40 is 110. Okay, so that will, and these points will also follow with that computation. So for the price of 15, 4 times 15 is 60. So 150 minus 60 is 90. Okay, so until here in point E, okay, for the price of 30. Okay, so for the price of 30, 4 times 30 is 120. 150 minus 120 is 30. So therefore, the price, as the price increases from 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, the quantity demanded decreases from 110 to 90 to 70 to 50 and 30. So there is an inverse relationship between our variables price and quantity demanded. So again, this is an evidence that we have the this inverse relationship between our variables. Okay, so third one is the demand curve. So the demand curve is a product of the demand schedule. So it shows us again the inverse relationship between our price and quantity demanded, but not using the demand schedule or the demand function, but with the use of a graphical representation, which is the curve. So this curve will show us the combination of points of these points A to E, A, B, C, D, E. So each point will determine kung ano yung magiging itsura ng ating demand curve. So if you are familiar with how the Cartesian plane works, no, in mathematics, so magiging madali na lamang ito. Okay, again, the demand curve is the graphical representation of the relationship, of the inverse relationship between our variables price and quantity demanded. So later on, I will show you that curve using this demand schedule. Kapag dumating tayo doon sa difference between price and between demand and quantity demanded. Okay, so let's differentiate quantity demanded versus demand. So when we say quantity demanded, it is the amount of goods or services that the consumers demand at a specific price at a given period in a condition of ceteris paribus. So it is important that we must remember that the quantity demanded is the condition of demand or the quantity demanded at a specific price. Okay? At a specific price at given period. So meron tayong certain period or isang situation, panahon. Okay? So that is the quantity demanded. So at a specific price, number of demand at a specific price. While the demand is the quantity of good that consumers are willing and able to purchase at various prices during a given period. So, ang pagkakaiba dito sa quantity demanded, we are talking about the specific price level, but in the demand, we are talking about the various price level. Okay? It means that the quantity demanded, the main factor that affects this quantity demanded is the price, because a specific price. But here in the demand, in various price level during a given period. So there will be a period that will affect, or a situation that will affect the level of demand. So that's the difference. Again, for quantity demanded, the factor that will affect it is the price level. And then the demand will be affected by the different situation at a given period. So let's start with discussing the changes in quantity demanded. So again, the changes in quantity demanded will only happen if there will be changes in price and all other things are held constant. So ito yung example na ating demand curve sa ating demand schedule kanina. So this is point A, B to E. So as you can see, ang ating demand curve ay downward slope. So this demand curve shows the inverse relationship between our variables price, itong nandito sa left side, and then here in the bottom, the quantity demanded. So there is an inverse relationship. So as you can see here in point A, at price of 10, the quantity demanded is 110. As the price of 10 increases to 15, the quantity demanded decreases to 90. And as it decreases to C, to D, to E, the quantity demanded decreases. Or the price increases from A to E, the quantity demanded decreases. Okay? As you can see, downward slope, so it shows the inverse relationship of the variables price and quantity demand. Okay, that is our third evidence of the law of demand, or the inverse relationship between our variables price and quantity demanded. Okay, topic number 3, changes in demand. So the only factor that will affect the level of demand is this situation at a given period. So the changes in demand shows the quantity demanded at a given price when the determinants of demand changes. So ang ating expected changes will be the determinants of demand, or the factors affecting demand. So we have two types of changes in demand. Let's say here in this example, so we have two curves. So first, the difference between quantity demanded and demand. In analyzing the quantity demanded, we only have one curve. Okay? And then, the point jumps from one point to another point along the curve. Meanwhile, here in changes in demand, we have two curves. Okay? The curve moves to right or to left. Okay? So if the curve shifts to the right, it means that the demand increases. Okay, from D1, demand curve 1 to demand curve 2, so shift to the right, so it means that we have an increase in our demand. And then, the next one is the shift to the left, so from D1, demand 1, to demand 2. So we have here a decrease in demand. Okay, so that will be the two types. So it is also possible that the demand curve will not move, will stay on its place. Okay? So it is possible. It depends upon the given problem or situation. So these are the determinants of demand, or the factors affecting demand. So first one is the income. Okay, the income has two classifications. So we will classify the effect of income in normal goods and inferior goods. So when we say normal goods, we have a direct relationship as our income increases. So let's say, tumaas ang ating sweldo. Okay? Tumaas ang sweldo ng tao, tumaas ang minimum wage. So how it will affect the demand for normal goods? So for normal goods daw, tataas ang demand. Direct. Kapag tumaas ang sweldo, tataas ang demand for normal goods. So for the firms, okay, for the managers, that is important na ma-analyze natin kung ang ating product ba ay isang normal good. So that makakapag-adjust tayo, makaka-catch up tayo in case na tumaas yung demand because of an increase in income level. Let's say, tumaas yung minimum wage. Tataas yung demand ng tao sa normal goods. And if you are the manager of this firm producing these normal goods, makaka-catch up ka, makakapag-adjust ka. So, ini-expect mo na tataas yung demand kasi ikaw ay part ng normal goods. Okay? So, the normal goods, ito yung kapag tumaas yung income natin, any good na kapag tumaas ang income natin ay tumataas yung demand natin dito. Okay? So, let's say, yung mga luxury goods. So, it is an example of normal goods kasi ito ay direct. Okay? Habang tumataas yung sweldo ng tao, mas bibili sila ng mga luxury goods, mga normal goods. Okay? So, pag tumaas yung sweldo ng tao, bibili sila ng damit, bibili sila ng mga kung ano-anong gamit, gadgets. So, yan yung mga example situation. So, as a firm manager, let's say, ang iyong product ay cellphone, gadgets. So mag-expect ka, i-stock ka na kasi nga tataas yung demand, kasi tumataas yung sweldo. Kaya kapag let's say, mga holiday season, nagkakaroon ng 13-month pay, 14-month pay ang mga employees, tumataas yung demand during that season. Tumataas ang demand for normal goods. Okay? So that is for the case of normal goods and income. While for the inferior goods, ito naman yung mga goods kung saan meron tayong inverse relationship between these goods and the income level. So let's say that the income increases, the demand for inferior goods decreases. Okay? So these are the goods kung saan ang ating demand for it ay bumababa habang tumataas yung sweldo natin. So basically, ito yung mga basic necessities natin na mabababa yung presyo. Na kapag tumaas yung sweldo natin, ay hindi na muna natin siya bibilhin. Kapag gipit na ulit tayo, tsaka natin ulit siya bibilhin. So, these are the inferior. That's why they called as inferior goods. Okay? So, kapag tumataas yung sweldo natin, sila yung hindi na natin pinapansin. Sila yung iniiwan na natin doon sa market. Okay? Pero kapag nawalan ka na naman ng pera, bumaba yung income mo, tataas naman yung demand mo sa inferior good. Bababa naman yung demand mo sa normal good. Kasi wala ka ng let's say, luxury goods, wala ka ng pangluho, meron ka ng pang basic necessities. Let's say, kung halimbawa, dati bumibili ka ng sardinas, tumaas yung sweldo mo. Ang binibili mo na, other delata. And then, bumaba yung sweldo mo, babalik ka na naman sa sardinas, di ka na naman bibili ng mamahaling delata. So, that is an example. Okay? So, as a firm manager, makakapag-adjust tayo in case na magkaroon tayo ng mga ganitong changes in our society. Of course, constant itong increase in income So, constant yan. So, habang tumataas. However, meron tayong effect of inflation. That's why, hindi natin ganoon nare-realize, no? Hindi na ganoon nare-realize ng public yung increase in their wages, or in the wage level, no? Pero, it affects the demand, okay? Basta tumataas ang income, it will affect the demand level for normal goods and inferior goods, okay? So, another determinant of demand is the taste preference. Of course, if the consumers prefer your goods and services, so meron tayong direct. Ibig sabihin, kapag mas prefer nila yung good mo, then, mas tataas yung demand for that. Okay? So, yan ang ating assumption, okay, in taste preference. So, dito pumapasok yung mga trends, no? Yung mga fad. So, let's say, in this season, nag-trend itong certain product na to, kaya tumaas yung demand. Let's say, during the pandemic, yung start ng pandemic, tumaas yung demand for plants, no? Na dati ay hindi naman talaga binibili ng tao. Kaya onti lang yung mga tao na makikita mo na merong plant sa office, sa table nila. But now, they having these part of their hobbies, no? Na magkaroon ng plants, no? And that is very beautiful, no? So, meron kasing taste preference factor that affect their demand for that plant, okay? So, prefer ng tao, kaya tumaas yung demand for that product, okay? So, another determinant is the price expectation. So, we have a direct effect. So, kung next week, ina-expect natin na tataas yung price for a certain product, our current demand, yung present demand natin ay tataas. That's why we have a direct. So, let's say, ang product natin ay, let's say, mga electronics like cellphones. Okay? So, di ba, ang mga cellphone companies nag-a-announce yan by next month, magkakaroon ng launching. bababa yung product, magkakaroon ng sale. So, hindi ka muna bibili ngayon. So, dahil bababa yung product nila, bababa yung demand mo din ngayon. Kasi bibili ka na lang kapag mababa na yung price level. Okay? So, that is price expectation. Katulad din yan kapag halimbawa tataas. So, let's say, tataas ang price level ng let's say, ano bang product na pwede natin gawing example? Let's say, mga kung sa pagkain, let's say, mga fast food, pero hindi kasi ganun kalaki yung effect kasi ito yung mga goods na talagang basic necessities ng tao. So, let's say, mga cars. Okay? So, halimbawa, tataas yung price ng cars next month. Okay, halimbawa, yan, nagkaroon tayo ng train law. So, part kasi ng train law, yung portion doon na naglalagay ng additional tax for purchasing cars. Okay? So, bukod doon sa price ng car, na basic price niya, nadadagdagan din yung tax na binabayaran ng tao. So, in-expect ng tao, let's say, pinatupad yung train law, papatupad yung train law sa January. So, because of the effect of the expected new taxation, tataas yung price ng car. So, ngayon ka bibili. Itataas yung demand mo ngayon. Hindi ka bibili kapag tumaas yung price level. Diba? Hindi naman bibili ang tao, ay, aantayin ko yung mataas yung price level, doon ako bibili. So, hindi naman ganun. So, bibili ang tao kapag alam nila na mababa yung price. So, kapag ina-expect nila na tataas yung price niyan, ngayon na sila bibili. Hindi sa kung kailan mataas na yung price level. So, as a firm manager, let's say, ikaw ay manager ng isang car company, so, ina-expect mo na tataas yung demand ngayon. That's why kapag nakausap nyo yung mga sales agent ng mga car companies, sir, bumili ka na ngayon kasi tataas yung price nito next month, next year, dahil sa new taxation. Okay, magdadagdag na naman ng excise tax, let's say. So, ganyan ang kanilang mga sinasabi sa kanilang mga customers. Okay? So, kasi makaka-apekto yun sa pagbili ng mga consumers. Kasi nga, our first assumption in economics ay limited ang ating resources. Of course, dahil limited ang resources mo, you have to make the best use of it, di ba? So, dapat ma-maximize mo yung limited resources mo. Okay, another factor or determinants of demand is the number of buyers. Of course, kapag dumarami ang population, dumarami yung demand. Let's say, halimbawa, sabihin na natin sa school. Okay? Meron tayong mga canteen sa school. Okay? Sa lagoon, let's say. So, dito sa school, sa ating canteen, kapag halimbawa, nagkaroon ng suspension, of course, walang bibili. Kasi walang tao, walang population, walang customers, walang buyers. But in situation na may pasok, regular day, madaming bumibili sa canteen. Kasi nga may population. Pero pag tinanggal mo yung estudyante dyan, wala. So, kapag maraming buyer, mataas ang demand. Okay? And then next one is the price of related goods. So, we have two classifications again here in the prices of related goods. So, first one for the complementary goods and substitute goods. So, when we say complementary goods, ito yung mga goods na binibili natin together. So, we are combining these goods to create another, let's say, a dish, no? Or pinagsasama natin sila kasi sila ay binibili talaga ng ganon. Okay? Sila ay mutual. Okay? So, for example, coffee and sugar. So, that is an example. So, pag bumili ka ng kape, na black coffee lang, yung instant, of course, hindi mo iinumin yun ng kape lang. So, most people prefer na iinumin mo yung kape with sugar. Okay, kung hindi ka man bumili ng 3-in-1, bibili ka ng black coffee and then sugar. Okay? So, meron daw tayong tinatawag na inverse relationship kapag ka-complementary goods. Okay? Let's say, ang iyong product ay, ayan nga, ang example natin ay sugar and coffee. So, let's say, ang product mo ay sugar. Okay? So, tumaas ang presyo ng coffee. Okay? So, meron daw tayong inverse. Okay? So, kapag tumaas ang presyo ng coffee, how it will affect the demand for sugar? So, dahil mataas ang presyo ng kape, hindi na muna magkakape ang tao. That's why, hindi na din sila muna bibili ng sugar na gagamitin nila for coffee. So, nagkaroon tayo ng inverse effect. Okay? Meanwhile, sa substitute goods, ito yung mga pamalit. Okay? So, let's say, coffee A and coffee B. So let's say a product like a Nescafe and Great Taste Coffee. So let's say ang price ng Nescafe ay tumaas. Okay, tumaas yung presyo ng Nescafe in the market. So how it will affect the demand for Great Taste Coffee? So meron daw tayong direct. So tataas din ang demand for Great Taste kasi tumaas yung presyo ng Nescafe. So as a substitute, dahil mataas ang presyo ng Nescafe product, yung people, yung consumers will demand for Great Taste na mas lower yung cost. Okay? So that's why meron tayong direct relationship kapag substitute goods. Okay? Again, these are the determinants of demand. So we can use this in analysis of analyzing the market situation. No? So as a manager, it is critical that we will analyze the market situation. Given that we have different situations, so paiba-iba yan everyday, may mga factors that can affect the demand of the consumers. That's why as managers, let's say, must plan and analyze to catch up, no, to cope up with this, let's say, a decrease or increase in demand. Okay. So for topic number 4, elasticity of demand. So for this elasticity, we are just measuring how the consumers will react in different price changes of goods and services. Okay. So we have 4 kinds of elasticity. First one, the price elasticity of demand or EP. So it measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded to changes in the price of the good itself, and other things are held constant or ceteris paribus. So we are measuring the responsiveness ng demand, yung quantity demanded ng consumers kapag nagbabago yung price level. Okay, that is price elasticity of demand. And then we also have the income elasticity of demand, and it measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded to changes in consumers' income. So dito pumapasok yung kaninang income na tinutukoy natin as determinants of demand. So paano magbabago ang kanilang quantity demanded kapag tumaas o bumaba ang kanilang income level. So our assumption, the coefficients can be positive or negative depending on the type of product. Okay? For a normal good, let's say, the income elasticity of demand is positive. But if the coefficient is negative, so we can say that the product is at a type of inferior good. And then the fourth is the cross elasticity of demand. Bakit nawala yung number 2? Babalikan na lang natin number 2 doon sa PowerPoint. Okay? So number 4, cross elasticity of demand. So ito naman ay related sa factor na price of related goods. Okay? So it measures the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded to changes in the price of related goods in the condition of ceteris paribus. Okay? So it is positive when the goods and services under study are substitute goods. So kapag positive ang cross elasticity of demand, then we can say that these products are substitute. But if the coefficient is negative, then the goods are classified as complementary goods. Okay? So again, the elasticity of demand, the concept of elasticity helps the consumers to understand the nature of pricing, especially that there are products which are necessary and that demand for these products may not be influenced by changes in its price. Okay, so we have 5 types of elasticity of demand. So once again, the elasticity of demand measures the changes in quantity demanded in respect with the changes in price level. So we have 5 types of elasticity of demand. So first one is the elastic or relatively elastic demand. Number 2, inelastic or relatively inelastic demand. Number 3, unitary or unit elastic demand. Number 4, perfectly elastic. 5, perfectly inelastic demand. Okay, so first one, when we say elastic or relatively elastic, so these are the conditions that we must satisfy to conclude that this product is an example of elastic or relatively elastic goods or services. So first condition, our elasticity, price elasticity shall be greater than 1. Okay? So if the price elasticity is greater than 1, then we can say that this product is an example of elastic goods. So if the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, it means that the changes in quantity is greater than the changes in price level. So as you can see dito sa ating graph, ang ating curve ay downward. Okay? siya ay downward, pero ang angle niya dito sa ilalim ay hindi 45 degree. Okay? So it is, let's say it is lower than 45 degree angle. Okay, so as you can see dito sa ating graph, makikita naman natin dito sa shaded area. From point A to B, yung changes natin, let's say ang price natin ay tumaas from 5 to 10, from A to B, ang ating quantity demanded ay bumaba from, let's say, 20 to 10. Okay, so yan ay example ng elastic or relatively elastic goods or services. Okay, so ibig sabihin kapag ganito ang iyong situation, malaki yung effect ng quantity demanded kahit maliit lang yung price level na binabago mo. Let's say ikaw yung firm manager ng elastic goods na to, nagbago ka ng maliit na price level, yung maliit na changes mo sa price level mo will affect the demand a lot. Okay? Malaki yung epekto niya sa iyong quantity demanded for your good or service. Okay? So any changes, kahit maliit lang yung price na yan, malaki yung reaction, malaki yung magiging response ng iyong consumers in a form of quantity demanded. Okay? So kahit maliit na changes in price lang, itong kulay green na to, as you can see, doblado yung kanyang effect sa price, sa quantity demanded. So malaki yung effect niya. That's why, kung ikaw yung firm manager ng elastic goods na to, kung alam mong ganyan yung case, so makakapag-adjust ka na dapat pala maliit lang yung price level na itataas ko. Kasi kapag malaki yung tinaas ko, sobrang laki ng effect nun sa demand for my product. So, soon, kapag halimbawa, malaki masyado yung price increase mo, so maaaring magkaroon ka ng zero profit. Yun yung worst na mangyari, na walang bumili ng product mo sa sobrang taas. Kasi nga, malaki yung reaction ng consumers. Okay? Malaki yung kanilang reaction kahit maliit lang yung price adjustment mo. Okay? So that is elastic or relatively elastic. Okay? Second example, or second type of elasticity of demand is inelastic or relatively inelastic demand. So our conditions in this type of elasticity is that our price elasticity of demand is less than 1%. Okay, that is our condition. So if the EP is less than 1%, it means that the changes in quantity is less than the changes in price. So in this case, mas malaki naman yung changes in price mo kaysa doon sa quantity demanded. Ibig sabihin, kahit malaki yung price change mo, okay, kahit malaki yung price change mo, maliit lang yung effect niya sa iyong consumers. Okay? So kahit ito yung mga firm kung saan yung product nila, pwede nilang i-adjust na malaki yung price kasi maliit lang yung magiging effect nun sa quantity demanded ng consumer. Okay? So yun yung kaibahan niya sa elastic. Okay? Kasi kapag elastic, maliit yung price adjustment pero napakalaki ng reaction ng consumers. But here, in this type of elasticity, let's say ganitong product ka, in elastic good ka, so malaki yung price level mo na binago, pero mas maliit doon yung magiging reaction, response ng consumer. So kahit magtaas ka, doblehin mo yung price mo, maliit lang yung effect nun sa consumers. Okay? So here in elastic goods, mas nagbe-benefit yung mas makaka-benefit yung mga firms in case na i-adjust nila yung price nila pataas. Okay. So that is inelastic or relatively inelastic demand. Okay. Next one is the unitary or unit elastic. So in this case, the elasticity of demand is equal to 1. Okay. That's why we call it as unit. Okay, 1 unit. So it means that the changes in quantity demanded is just equal to the changes in price. Okay. So it means, halimbawa, binago mo yung price mo tinaasan mo yung price mo ng 10 pesos. So ang effect niya sa quantity demanded mo ay 10 units din pababa. So, maaaring ganun, unitary. So, ang changes in quantity demanded ay equal doon sa binabago na price level. So, sa pagbabago sa price level. So, another explanation of this is that ang consumption ng tao ay based sa kanilang sa price level. Halimbawa, ang good na binibili natin ng paramihan. Okay? So, kapag halimbawa, ano bang mga goods ito? Mga sabon. Okay, sabon panligo. So, di ba pagka ang kadalasan ng mga tao bumibili niyan by batch. Okay? Let's say 6 pieces. Okay? Let's say mababa yung price. So, pwede siyang bumili ng 6. Okay? Yung halimbawa, bumaba ang presyo ng sabon ng piso, magdadagdag siya ng isa kasi mas mura. Pwedeng ganun. So, that is an example of unitary elastic. So, the quantity demanded of the consumers rely on the price level. Okay, proportionate, kumbaga. Okay, number 4, perfectly elastic demand. So as you can see, ang ating perfectly elastic demand ay horizontal line. So the elasticity, the price elasticity of demand, the coefficient is infinite. So if the coefficient is infinite, then we can conclude that it is an example of perfectly elastic demand. And if that's the case, then we can say that the changes in quantity demanded is there, but the price level is constant. So hindi magbabago ang price level, as you can see, horizontal siya. So dito lang siya sa level na to, let's say price of 50 pesos. But the demand of the consumers may change from point A to B. Okay? Pwede magbago yung demand ng consumer sa product na to kahit hindi magbago yung price. So, for example, mga seasonal goods, no? Yung mga binibili lang natin sa panahon na to, let's say tuwing holiday season, tuwing summer season, hindi naman nagbabago yung price niyan, let's say, ganun yung assumption natin, hindi nagbabago yung price kahit hindi siya season siya, ganun pa din yung price. Pero yung demand ng tao, yung quantity demanded ng tao, nagbabago. Okay? So as a firm, as a manager, paano mo gagamitin yung analysis na to? So if your product is an example of perfectly elastic demand, a perfectly elastic good, ang iyong good ay may demand kahit hindi mo palitan yung price. Kumbaga, okay? So hindi mo papalitan yung price level mo, pero bibili at bibili yung tao. Okay? Kasi seasonal siya. Bibili sila kung kailan kailangan, kung kailan ginagamit. Okay? So that is an example of perfectly elastic good. And the last one is the perfectly inelastic demand. Ito naman yung kabaliktaran ng number 4, or the perfectly elastic good. So our condition in perfectly inelastic demand is our coefficient, elasticity coefficient, shall be equal to 0. If the coefficient is equal to 0, it means that nagkaroon ng changes in price, but the quantity is constant. That's why our demand curve, elasticity curve here in perfectly inelastic demand is vertical. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ito yung quantity demanded, kahit nagbabago yung price, ito pa rin yung binibili ng tao. Okay? So, yung binibili ng tao ay hindi nagbabago, hindi siya nagre-respond sa changes in price level. So, kahit pagtaas baba yung presyo, ang demand ng tao kung ano lang yung kailangan nila. Okay? For example, mga gamot. Okay? So, let's say, ang isang analysis natin dyan, halimbawa, mga paracetamol. Okay? Halimbawa, kapag bumababa yung presyo ng Tempra or Biogesic ng piso, bibili ka ba ng madami? No. Bibilin mo lang siya kapag kailan mo siya kailangan. That is a perfectly inelastic good. Kahit bumaba yung presyo niyan, tumaas ang presyo niyan, hindi ka bibili kahit hindi ka ma-attract sa presyo niyan. Bibili ka lang kapag nagkasakit ka. Okay? So that's why ang demand ng tao ay constant. Okay? Hindi siya nagbabago. Quantity demanded. So that is type of elasticity of demand. So for this perfectly inelastic demand, ang nagbe-benefit dito ay yung firm kasi they can control the price level. They can adjust, pataas, baba. Okay? Kasi nga, ang demand ng tao, yun at yun pa din, hindi naman siya magbabago. Okay, so that is the 5 types of elasticity of demand. And that ends our presentation today. So once again, I am expecting that you will watch this video from the start to finish. And then next meeting, you will have your assessment. So we will cut our discussion here in the first part of chapter 3. Then we will have assessments number 1, 2, and 3. Or 1 and 2. Depende sa cut ng items kasi ang goal ko sana 30 items or 20 to 30 items per assessment. So kung ilang items yung magagawa ko din, yun yung number ng ating quiz. So your quiz will be posted on between Monday to Wednesday kung anong araw tayo mag-meet. So for that day, you have the whole day to answer your quiz. And then, kapag nagsagot ka ng quiz, that will be your attendance record for that day. Okay? So if you have any questions about our discussion, please comment down your questions to our general tab under this post. Okay? So thank you and see you next meeting. Bye.